abruptly. I apologize for
Yeah,
cutting you
quick
guys
over
off.
here.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
okay.
got to get it right now. I'll send it to you. Yeah, for everybody watching, I'm using a Rumble Studio, which
Oh, are
is
we live right now?
we are live right now.
Oh, I thought we were talking behind the
No, no, no,
scenes.
no, no, no. Right now we're live. You guys were live
Okay.
beforehand.
Okay.
It's very. I'm still trying to figure out how to use Rumble Studio. I don't know where the live link is, so it's still very janky to say the least. Where in the hell is it? Where is it? Where is the live link? I don't know. So we're just gonna start talking. Well, so Michael Yan, who's been on here multiple times before, as well as Bazzel Baz, who's been on here multiple times before, and talking about. I think Michael's in Okinawa right now, and kind of everything around the. I don't really even know what to call it, but I suppose everything around the events of January 13th and all that's continuing to unravel. And the first thing I did was have Dale on like a couple hours after it happened, and I'm having you guys on, and I'm continuing to have former SF guys, military guys, this whole week because much like during the pandemic, I had on doctors because they're qualified to talk about it. I'm having on you guys because you're qualified to talk about it. I don't know anything about ballistics, shooting, assassinate, finding cover, security. I am a complete neophyte with it. So, um, I don't really even know how or where we're gonna jump off, but guess we'll start with Michael because you're in Japan and it's late and you're a tired guy. So we'll start with you first. What is happening at the 100,000 foot level?
Well, at the 100,000 foot level, we're in a state of global war, and there's many aspects to this war. One is we clearly will go into famines at some point. I've been warning about this since about January or February of 2020 when it became apparent. And also, other aspects of this war are digital IDs that'll be coming out. Of course, their personal hard digital money and social credit scores, but also control of our bio identity. I mean, facial recognition and everything else. We're not going to be able to cross the borders without everybody know. We're not going to be able to go anywhere without everybody knowing about us. I spent a lot of time in authoritarian countries, and that's not something you want to do. For those who haven't experienced it yet, well, everybody's experienced it at this point. It's just not what it eventually will become. But another aspect of this war is weaponized migration, right? You can see the weaponized migration, millions of people coming into the United States. The United States government is the main culprit of this, flying them in 24/7. They've opened up the Darien Gap. I'm down there a lot. I've spent about 6 months in the Darien Gap since Biden was installed, down on the Colombia side and the Panamanian side, and then all the way up through Central America. Was recently in Belize and Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador looking at similar issues. Mexico, of course. I mean, Canada. I was just up in Canada looking at it. There's another border that a lot of people don't take into consideration, and that's the Bahamas. China is really moving into the Caribbean hard, such as Antigua and Grenada. But in the Bahamas, they have a large port right off the coast of Florida, and they're building a huge embassy there. I was just over there months ago with Ann Vandersteel and Masako Ganaha, and we were looking at this. Anyway, that's a main invasion route. Actually, a lot of people are coming up from Florida beaches constantly through the Bahamas.
And Mike, I got the live link. I just texted to you, so if I can bother you to tweet it. And
Will do.
but Baz, where do you jump off from that as someone that deals with? I mean, really, the problems that I guess maybe the secondary effects, or if it would be primary effects from border issues per ARC, the Association for the Recovery of the Children. The link of which is in the description. Please go check it out. You can take a test and help fight against human trafficking. Where do you come off of that, Baz?
Yeah, Mike's right on so many fronts there. One of the things that we look at is the question as to why. And I think for many Americans, we're understanding that the why is ultimately the destruction of our sovereignty, of our Constitution, of our country altogether. There was a proof of concept run years ago. We called it the Great Middle Eastern Migration. It came across the pond in the Mediterranean. That was a proof of concept. And you saw what that did to Europe. So we're watching that happen here in the United States as well. You flood this country with, and I think we're up now, and Mike, you might want to correct me. I think the last count was 22 million illegal immigrants in the country. And what happens is you have 22 million people who come from a third world country or third world countries that have no sense of nationality, of sovereignty, whatever it may be. They're not going to go back and study American History 101. They're not going to have an allegiance to the flag. They're not going to have anything but a one world view, which is what they come from, of what it is to be a citizen of a one world government. So it is just a different way of attacking the United States. Some of the biggest players, whether it's Russia or China or whatever, realize that still, even as struggling as we are in America right now, if they were to actually perform some type of frontal assault on our shores or attack us physically, we would retaliate, and you would have a horrible scene across the planet when it comes to what most people are predicting to be a world war. But the U.S. would fight back. So that wouldn't serve them well, to be honest with you. So it's just a different way of attacking the country, the demise of America by doing all this. And I remember speaking on a podcast, I don't know, 4 years ago, and somebody asked me the question of why is Biden allowing so many illegal immigrants into the country unchecked? And I said, well, think about it. You get 22 million people here, and all of a sudden the president of the United States decides, I'm going to give them amnesty. We're going to make them Americans automatically. You got 22 million votes for a global socialist government that's just going to continue to play itself out as we're seeing right now. So, for those that used to think all this was conspiracy, digital currency, digital filing, all the things that Michael just mentioned about, not being able to go anywhere without everybody in the government or ever who becomes the top dog in control. All of those things aren't conspiracies anymore, and people are realizing that. It's I think part of that, right after we saw after COVID, and we're kind of seeing this in America right now, is that people were worshiping the god of medicine. They were worshiping the god of government. They were worshiping the god of finances, and all that's fallen apart right now. So on the faith-based aspect of things, people are starting to get back to just worshiping God and realizing there's a spiritual component to all of this. Not to get into a religious avenue here, but what I'm saying is the mindset of people is shifting, and it's also shifting to a spot where people are starting to, instead of looking at the 200-foot level, they are also looking at the 14,000-foot level, going, "Oh my gosh, all this stuff isn't a conspiracy. How do we clean all this stuff up? The nation that I knew, the government or the country we fought for, is in great peril right now, and it's not funny, it's not conspiracy any longer. It is a true push, and we see that in one very, very simple, um, what's the right word for it? Well, it plays itself out in one simple platform, and that is there's no accountability. We've talked about this. We see things happening, and people believe that once the media reports it or we see it happening, that something's being done about it. Nothing's being done about it. There's no accountability. And if there's no accountability, then there's no justice. And if there's no justice, then surely in the nation it gets divided between the elites and those that are not the elites. And we're seeing that. I mean, I saw that as a Cold Warrior. I saw that play itself out in Cuba. We see it play itself out in Venezuela. We saw it play out in the old Soviet Union, where there was definitely a divide, and in the nations, and those who suffered the greatest injustice were not the elite class. They were not part of the club. It kind of emulates what's going on with President Trump right now. He's not part of the old boys club. So everybody is doing whatever they can to prevent him from setting an example of what America should be, has always been, and what Americans should do to protect their country. And they'll stop at nothing to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's my take on it right now.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, right now, with the way things are going, obviously things are getting more serious. Now you see routes like the Darien Gap it's increasing. They're building a bridge down there now. I found it about, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. I keep going to the Darien Gap, and I kept going to this certain area at the end of Highway 1 near a town called Yavitsa. And because I suspected they were going to start building a road down there for various reasons. And sure enough, I found some muddy tracks on the road and I followed them back and they're, building a bridge. And it's a very substantial bridge. So went down there with Ann Vandersteel and Masako Ganaha and Chuck Holton and some others. And Laura Loomer took them all down there, and they could see it. Brett Weinstein took him, Chris Martinson, took a lot of people to see this so that they could, make their own analysis. But what's happening is clearly Panama and Colombia are going to be joined by a highway. Now, the implications of this are quite serious, especially if you look at the conditions that are being created for global famines. Famines create something called HOP, human osmotic pressure, which is the push and pull of migration. And already we have a huge number of people going through. I just got a message some hours ago from one of the Indians that lives down there, Imbara Indian. He's down there making some video for me today. There's, a couple thousand a day or so coming in, depending on the rains. That's just that route, right? But once that highway's open, all of South America and everybody who can make their way to South America can come through. Now, we have Chinese flying every day to Chiang Mai, Thailand, then over to Turkey, and then over to Quito, Ecuador, and then they go through the Darien Gap. About 2 months ago, you can find it in the news, Ecuador changed their policy that Chinese needed visas to come into Ecuador. And, China, this is important. China is the major investor in Ecuadorian power, energy, electrical. And so the day after Ecuador mandated that, or at least set the policy that Chinese needed a visa to enter Ecuador, the electricity went off for the entire country. Now, keep in mind, China is the main investor for electricity in Ecuador. Ecuador said you need a visa and lights out, entire country. Just happened. You can see it in the news, right? That's power. They're doing this all over the place. I mean, I go up to El Salvador and they've built a huge library downtown, the Chinese Communist flags flying downtown in San Salvador. You got a country after country after country. You go over to, Bahamas, right off the coast of Florida. That big container port right off the coast. I mean, we are within minor league drone. Not even major drone. We're within minor league drone range, right? It's just amazing what's happening, and people are blind to it. And I talk with a lot of the major thought leaders in America frequently and offline, and a lot of them have no idea the threat that China poses still, right? They just have no idea whatsoever. For instance, that China is not a threat, China is not aggressive. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Have you been to Tibet? I have. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let me say, I'm fasting, so I need water all the time. I'm on my 15th day. So, Baz is up near Estes Park. You're fasting too. And, I was up at Tibet one time and, the Tibet. And, the United States sponsored a resistance there for a while, and they were called the Compass people. And they were trained not far from Estes Park up in Leadville, Colorado, actually. And then we inserted them by parachute and other means back to Tibet because China had overrun Tibet, obviously, claiming that it was their territory, which it was not. They did the same with Xinjiang, right, with the Uyghurs. Now you see China at this moment threatening, of course, Taiwan like they normally do. Last time I left Taiwan, I don't know, a couple months ago, the Chinese Navy surrounded it the day I left, whatever that was. That was right after the presidential inauguration. And China claims that Taiwan is part of China or was part of China. But here's the reality. There's a lot of people watching this, I'm sure, that think Taiwan used to be part of China. It's a breakaway province. That's what they say. But in fact, here's the truth. Taiwan was part of China for 0 days. Never, not one day. It was absolutely never part of China, and you won't be able to find that it was. Go ahead, starting gun, find it. Go to the Library of Congress. It's not there, right? It's just didn't happen. This is information war. Information war is the highest form of warfare. And that's why we have all these children that are being huge numbers of children coming in across the border. And Baz is doing his best to find them. But this is like a dam breaking, and you've got a few buckets to catch it with. Where are these children? I need to be quiet because I want to hear what Baz says. Where are these children going? Where are they going? And we ask ourselves every day. Massive numbers of children are just hundreds of thousands are vanishing somewhere.
Yeah, it's a great question, Michael. There's a couple of fronts to talk on. One, a lot of the children that are coming through, as you know, are what we call cartel sponsored. When we talk about cartel, the average person thinks it's something out of the movie Sicario. That's just the Mexican cartel. The cartel is global. The cartel, so to speak, and its strategic partners have more money than most governments have throughout the world. So it's difficult to fight against them. But the cartel sponsored kids or kids, think about this. They come in, let's say, and you might have noticed this, a lot of them have been between the age of 16 and 18. So what happens is they come across, you get a catch and release program established by the Biden administration, which absolutely makes no sense at all. I mean, we can't even account for the number of terrorists that have already entered our country, and we know for a fact they have. So, we need to stand by for the effects of that as well. But what happens is a kid gets in, he goes into a foster care system, he ages out at 18. Think about it, he has no education, hardly speaks English, he's not going to be able to get a job. So who does he work for? He works for the cartel. He becomes their bag boy. He becomes the one that pushes the drugs, the fentanyl, the crime, helps formulate the new gangs out of El Salvador or out of Mexico or out of Guatemala or wherever it may be. That's on one front. On another front, we've seen an increase in child pornography. We are the largest buyers of child sex pornography of any nation in the world. As you know, child sex trafficking is a $150 billion global business. It's become very sophisticated. So a lot of it's about the money. And so we're seeing an increase there. And we're going to see an increase in child sex trafficking as well. Now, with all that said, Michael, much to your question, and Tommy's asked us before too, it is very, very interesting. Where are all the children going? And so, for the NGO side of the house, we're searching. We're searching. Tara Rodas spoke before Congress, and we had initially 86,000 children missing that the government doesn't even know where they are. It's inexcusable. So could some of those children be going to organ harvesting? Of course. I try not to speculate. I try to speak from a point of evidence. So when I look at pharmaceutical companies, big pharmaceutical companies that make billions of dollars, and we've had these discussions, we look at a time where pharmaceutical companies used to use animals to do their testing for the medications that they were going to eventually sell to the populace. And then, of course, PETA got involved and other people got involved, and then it became a bad thing, a really bad thing to use animals. And so they had to figure out another way. And all of a sudden, we noticed a change or shift in the type of medications that were coming out that were, in fact, far more effective than they had been before on the human front, so to speak. So if you're going to have a medication that's effective on humans, who do you need to be testing that on? Humans. So why wouldn't children be lab rats? Of course they could be. And people go, oh my gosh, that's a conspiracy again. Well, as someone who's been in the trenches for 30 some years looking for children, there were things that I thought were conspiracy a long time ago as well, and that have all come true. So when it comes to money and evil and power, there's nothing that surprises me anymore. So would we love to stumble on one of those underground labs and find that to be true? Absolutely. And there are people working on that. So that's a possibility. We do know that American children actually, based on an intel report that we received actually 3 months ago, are being transferred back across the border south to be staged in Mexico and rerouted to North Africa for organ harvesting. And the reason being is they are considered to be on the black market less parasitic. So in someone's mind, they believe that your organs are healthier if you have fewer parasites, I guess. So we're looking at
Wait,
that
can
as
you
well.
repeat that? Can you repeat?
Yeah. Yeah, so American children that are missing, some the intel report shows that some of those children are being transferred south across the border, staged in Mexico, and eventually transferred into North Africa for organ harvesting. So the reason being, you would say, well, wait a minute, you've got plenty of kids in North Africa, around the world you could get a hold of. American children are considered less parasitic, meaning their organs are somewhat healthier because we don't have as many parasites. Now, you and I live in America, and we know that's not true. We know that a lot of people in America are full of parasites. But on the black market, if you're selling organs, that's a pretty good sales pitch, to be honest with you. So we take all that, and we're going to have to. One of the things that prevents us from finding all the children that we need to find, whether they're illegal immigrants or the 450,000 American children we're missing last year, is that there is an intentional veil that has been put over, and there's great sophistication
Four
in
hundred and
transporting them.
fifty thousand. Four
Well,
hundred
that's the
fifty, and
number.
that's just American kids, right? That doesn't include the missing that come over the border every night.
Yeah, and that number changes. It changes occasionally, but that's on the average. 450,000 was last year. Now, as you know, those reports are generated by a lot of three-letter agencies and government entities in America. If you take a look at what the State Department says, their numbers haven't changed in 5 years, so they're not really paying attention to it. But the
Where does
question
that
for all
number come from?
that's a good question. Where does that number come from? You know what? From the NGO side of the house, we have organizations that we turn to that do humanitarian surveys and bring those numbers to us. When it comes from the government, they're supposed to be taking reports from local, state, and federal police. Sometimes it comes from the FBI, sometimes it comes from HSI, and the accuracy of that, we don't know how accurate that is, to be very honest with you. We just know there's a lot of kids missing. And I always tell people this, does it really matter if the number is 450,000 or if it was 40?
Yeah.
Every life of a child counts. It doesn't really matter. So for some reason, we posture ourselves in a manner, well, no, that's not even the right term to use. We figure if we have more numbers, it's more extraordinary and we can get more people involved. But that's not the way we should be looking at life. We should be
Mhm.
looking at the life of children, whether it's one child or 40 children or whatever. So it's not really a matter of how many children are missing. The fact is, children are missing. And when you're the HSI guy that's watching, 1-year-old children on child porn being raped by predators daily, we have a problem in America. What's interesting about all of this is what we call the cover up and the lack of accountability in our nation. We have the ability to stop all of this in our country, and yet it doesn't take place. And it doesn't take place because money exchanges hands. We call it the coin of compromise. It's much like you said, Michael, about and I find this to be extraordinary also, the number of influencers that go, man, I didn't know China was such a threat. That's true. Some don't. But guess what? I submit that the majority do, and that they're on the payroll, to be honest with you. The coin of compromise. They just look the other way. We saw that. I remember Dick D'Amato when he was on the China Commission way back years ago. He was telling Congress, look, China is a threat. They're a threat because they can come into a country like Africa, talk about building infrastructure for a lot cheaper than anybody else, but they're going to want something in return. And now we know what that is in return. But yet, because everybody was greedy and because everybody wanted cheap labor, or because somebody wanted, they wanted to do manufacturing overseas rather than the United States, we compromised, and now we're paying for it right now. Quite honestly, I haven't. I don't think I've ever purchased anything from China that didn't fall apart, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah.
there's always a reason, and understanding the Chinese mentality, and you do so well. Um, they want to become a world power and they want to rule, but so do a lot of other players as well. So there's going to be alliances that are built either with Iran or China or Russia and China or whatever. And it's all ultimately to gain control over all the sovereign nations of the world, whatever they think. Get everybody into the club, everybody to compromise, and then they dictate the structure of your society, which becomes the elite and the poor. The middle class, as we all know, has been the bridge for the poorest person in the world to find success. We've always been the bridge. And you take that bridge away, and guess what? You have exactly what Russia had in the Soviet Union. You have exactly what Venezuela has now. You have exactly what Fidel put into Cuba. And that is, and we in the United States, believe it or not, and because of our arrogance, because of our distractions, because of our lack of understanding the history of our founding fathers, belief in the Constitution, or loss our faith in God, or whatever it may be, uh, that is creating problems in America that to some point or to some degree, particularly now with 22 million illegal immigrants in the country, that we have to clean up. The load is too much on the economy. It's too much on the people. The crime will soar before we can get our hands on it. And we're looking at some rough times ahead of us here in this country, to be honest with you. At least that's what I believe.
Oh, it's clear. Rough times are clearly coming. The invasion is increasing too. It's not even slowing down. They're like,
Yeah.
for instance, Bill. Yeah, and again, I was over in Ireland a couple years ago, and I just had a long call last night with somebody from Ireland. That place is overrun. I mean, it's like straight up. I'm expecting any moment they're just going to start doing a genocide against the Irish. And they can do it. I mean, they've got the numbers now to do it. Mostly when I was in Ireland watching this, it was military age males, just like I see on our border. I've been across the entire southern U.S. border from SpaceX at Boca Chica to San Diego, much of that on the Mexican side and all of the U.S. side. And I've seen what's coming. These people are high testosterone. I mean, these are very serious people. And meanwhile, we've got influencers, I hate to say it, but like Joe Rogan smoking his dope with Elon Musk in front of millions of young people, like just chilling out, like nothing's happening. They're smoking dope while we're being invaded with high testosterone men by the millions, right? Europe is the same. I was down in Morocco watching how Morocco is weaponizing migration against Spain and the EU. But Morocco has been a good partner to the United States since 1778, I think. I don't remember. Sometime back then, actually, Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States after our independence, by the way. And by the way, if you meet a Moroccan and you say, well, thank you for being the first to recognize us, the Moroccans are always very appreciative. Like, you're the only American that's ever heard that. But
I
it's
didn't know
interesting
that.
because they're using weaponized migration against the Spanish because there's two Spanish cities in Africa, in Morocco, called Ceuta and Melilla. I went to the outskirts of Ceuta, and so they're actually in Africa. So if you can get into one of those cities, you're in the EU. And not to mention, of course, they're flooding into Italy and Spain and sometimes Poland, but Poland's pushing back. Lithuania's pushed back. I went to Lithuania looking at this, but in any case, this is global. They're trying the same here in Japan, by the way. So a lot of countries, when you go to Netherlands or someplace, a lot of people will say, why are they doing that to our country? It's like, no, they're doing it to all the countries they want to destroy. They want to destroy our sovereignty. And they're getting there at this rate.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're exactly right. And we're being, at least the generations that come after us have been manipulated to think that if I speak up or I stand up for my rights as an American, and in the first place, most of them don't even know what an American is anymore because they're not taught that in school. Then I'm a domestic terrorist, or I'm a bad person, or I'm not loving the world, or whatever. And I got to tell you something.
Yeah,
When it comes to the Irish, I hope the Irish fight back. I mean, I'm talking about physically fight back to save Ireland. The Irish
they
been
need
pretty
to.
feisty. They need to, and we need to here in America. What happens is the lines become blurred because of this administration, and people say, well, who is the enemy? I'm going to tell you right now, the enemy is sitting in Washington, D.C. right now. These are not Americans. These are not Americans true to the core. These are globalists. These are socialist
Right.
globalists, just a different word for communism, socialism, whatever.
That's
And
right.
and people are afraid to speak up because they're afraid that they're afraid that they're going to weaponize the FBI or whatever, and they might. But I'm
They
going to say
have.
something. They have, of course. You know what? As an American, take the example of our founding fathers and study it and understand it. And if somebody says, Well, they were a little violent. They threw tea into the harbor, and they went after the British, and a war got started. You know what? Do it. You know what? We are just short of taking up arms and defending the Constitution. And you know what? I am not saying anything that our founding fathers did not say and do before, and that is exactly right. And I know what it's like to lose liberty and freedom. And if you allow it to be taken away, then you deserve what you get. You deserve to be enslaved by a socialist government. And if you're not willing to take up arms and to when that time comes, if that time comes, then you're not worth your weight in salt as an American, to be honest with you. And people go, well, you're speaking violence. You know what? I'm not speaking violence. I'm speaking truth. What do you do when a weaponized organization just kicks your door in and says, we're taking everything you have because we're the government? What are you going to do then? You tell me. You're just going to roll over and let them have it? Well, then guess what? But there are some of us that spend our entire career overseas fighting for the freedom of this country, and we did not want to come home in a body bag. But I can tell you one thing, after talking to about 55 million veterans in this country, they are willing to die on their own soil for that. And a lot of people hear me say this and they go, wow, you're extreme. You really? You think I'm extreme? Talk to the January 6 people that are imprisoned right now with no charges. That's extreme. Talk about president that was just almost assassinated a week ago. That's not extreme. When do you wake up and smell the coffee? Talk about the Darien Gap and the bridge that they're building to flood the United States more illegal immigrations. That's not extreme. Talk about a catch and release policy by a administration, a Biden administration, Biden Harris administration that is so hell bent on turning this country into a socialist nation. You got to wake up and smell the coffee. It is what it is. You want to know who the enemy is? That's the enemy right there. It is among us. And when you study your history, everything that they're doing in this country is to destroy the nation. And it is by design. It is not mishap. I have people talk about going, well, that Harris, she's just stupid. Well, Biden, he's like incompetent. You know, the Democratic Party, they just don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They
Yeah.
all know exactly what they're doing. They're the G8 people. They're the globalists that go to the summits and talk about how do we take over the United States of America, the most powerful, most influential country in the world that stands for democracy and freedom. How do we make them submit? And that's part of that immigration push. It's part of our policies. It's part of breaking the back of America. And most people will not rise up and do anything about it until it's knocking on their front door. And guess what? Then it's a little too late. So if people think that I'm extreme when I say this, then go study your history. Go study American history. Go study how this country was founded. And guess what? Those our founding fathers did not end up being wealthy men. They sold everything they had for the war effort. So if people go, well, are you saying that you would take up arms? Absolutely. I would take up arms as an American patriot if the Constitution of the United States is being threatened, if my family is being threatened, if my liberties and my freedom are being threatened. I will do exactly what my founding fathers do. You want to call me a domestic terrorist? Guess what? They called our founding fathers that. Find a new name, okay? Because we're used to that. So I think we've got to draw a line, to be honest with you. And it's got to be drawn soon, because I got to tell you what, this is a heavy lift cleaning this country up. But again, it goes back to one interesting thing, and that is there's no accountability. I'll tell our audience this: when bad things happen to bad people,
Keep
guess what
talking. I'm
happens?
going to go get 3 books by Benjamin Franklin that I picked up the other day in Tokyo
Yeah,
Antique Book. I'm going to read this letter to you. You're going to love
good.
this. I'll be right back.
Go for it.
Yeah. So when bad things happen to bad people, justice reigns. And we know who the bad people are. And I don't think very many Americans are sending that message. Tommy,
Yeah, no, it's. I think
I got
that
on a rant there. Sorry,
no, dude,
man.
that's
I
the
got
that's
I
all
got fueled.
that's all 5 years of this podcast is me ranting or me coaxing a guest into ranting. That's all it is. It's just harnessed rants. Uh, yeah, I mean, but I think at least just from where I'm sitting, I think July 13th. I think that woke a lot of people up into just what I mean. I think the 34 felony counts did, but I think July 13th kind of snapped a lot of people out. Or Michael's back. He's got his bag of books. He's about
He's
to
got
drop.
some good
He's
books.
about to classes in
Not
session.
go anywhere without books, man. You got to study.
That's true.
I've got about 1,500
Yeah.
books on my phone. Yeah.
Check out this bag. I got these books. I was in this antique bookstore in Tokyo,
Wow.
and
Look at that.
I saw these books. Benjamin Franklin. Hold on, founding father, and it was works of Benjamin Franklin, 1806, right?
Wow.
So he died in 1790. So, but this is well, it's 3 books. These are unbelievable. I've been going through them every night, and while you talk, I'm gonna find this letter that he wrote to this British member of Parliament. You're gonna love this. But keep talking. I'm gonna find it. It's in volume 1. Okay.
So Tommy, on the 13th, yeah, it's interesting is that I happen to have a lot of operators at my house on that day. So we got to dive into a lot of analytical discussions. And there are actually, and I think the federal government needs to know this, there are a lot of people out there besides the FBI and other and Secret Service running investigations. And there's some interesting evidence that's going to be brought out about that. But that was inexcusable. If I had ever, if I had not experienced what structured assassinations look like, I probably wouldn't be able to speak to it. But let me explain to the audience. That was so structured. That was a blatant attempt on the life of the president of the United States right there. Inexcusable. You know, you can say, well, we had the V team in, or, we didn't really understand how we do perimeter security. No, they understand all that. It's taught, it's written, it's exercised, it's rehearsed. That was intentional. That corridor was left open. And there are other bigger players in this. Now, what they're going to try to do, if they're not already doing it, is the Biden administration is going to try to say, well, we believe a foreign entity was involved, Iran was involved or something. Don't buy that BS. Don't buy that. This is internal to our country. This is Obama, this is Clinton, this may be Bush, this may be the old boy network. These are all the people that want to see this country go down, and they don't want Trump in power. And they were all part of the coin of compromise as well. Secret Service, inexcusable. That's just inexcusable. So I think we're going to see some really interesting things come out of all this, the evidence. Question is, who will be held accountable? Who will be held accountable for it? And that's the problem I always go back to. There's no accountability. So my message to the American people is you need to start holding people accountable.
I
Did you find it yet, Michael?
tried to get.
Yeah, I did. I did. Okay, first I'll show you the splash page. I have to be careful. It is from 18. This book is 1806. You can see. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
focusing,
Yeah.
but you can see it. Now I'm going to read you this letter that he wrote to this British member of Parliament. These old books are much better than the books that we get today, because they got like things like I'll show you here. Like this one's got all kinds of fold out pages. Well, this has a fold out letter, a facsimile. They call it a facsimile, actually. The word fax. So it's
Wow, look at that.
it's in his handwriting, and so it folds out, right? So I'm going to read this to you. It's very short. It's just a few sentences, but it's typical Benjamin Franklin, super direct. I mean, this guy was brilliant, man. You read, our founding fathers were extraordinary. Let's see. It's his handwriting is very good, but it's still cursive. All right, here we go. So this is a member. He's writing this letter on July 5th, 1775, to a member of Parliament in the United Kingdom, a friend of his. Says, you are a member of Parliament, and one of that majority which has doomed my country to destructions. You have begun burning towns and murdering our people. I'm trying to read his cursive. That's what I'm just saying. Yeah. Look upon your hands. They are tainted with blood of your relations. You and I were long friends. You are now my enemy. Yours, Benjamin Franklin. Just very direct. He's like, yeah, that's a declaration of war if I ever heard one. And Interestingly, these books were printed in London. And you look on that splash page again in 1806. After we whipped them, we printed this book there. Can't even make up this stuff. Yeah.
Just rub it in their face.
Yeah.
But that then
Yeah.
to go from the weaponized migration, the bio warfare, it
He
almost
was crystal clear, though. He lays out the grievances, which would be similar to now, uh, but actually more intense now in a lot of ways than it was then. And it's like that's enough. If we have to, we're gonna throw down. And of
Yeah.
course we did. Two of my grandfathers fought in that war, and I hope they smoked a few of them. Actually, one of the units that they fought was the Royal Green Jackets, and I happened to be with them in Iraq and Afghanistan, weirdly.
odd. Yeah. And because I know we have to let Michael go in a couple minutes, I do want to touch on it
Nice.
then is
Yeah.
1046. Is then who ordered the shot? Was this just an organic uprising? And it wasn't. I mean, it was clearly it was an orchestrated and seemingly well funded job. What was it? Was it the kind of the obvious answer, our own government? Was it an external force who, they want a civil war, which would have ensued? Who do y'all think it is? And just off, gut feeling or, based on your best analysis. Or you also don't have to answer it if you don't want to.
I'll let you take that.
Baz?
No, go ahead, Michael. I'll follow you.
Baz.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know who did it, but it clearly was somebody nefarious, and it clearly wasn't that boy on the roof. I mean,
No.
he may have shot. I do not know if he actually shot. But my immediate suspicion was that there was somebody in that building that actually shot as well. But now we have acoustic evidence. It's quite clear there were at least two rifles, not including the counter snipers, not including them. There were at least two, possibly three other rifles. So three total rifles, including the guy on the roof, right? So unless he didn't shoot. Now, did he shoot or not? I don't know. I didn't see any video of him shooting or and the FBI cleaned up that evidence lickety split. We know that the government was behind us. That's like this duck walks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. It poops like a duck. It is absolutely a duck. The government was clearly involved. The question was, what were their actual goals? We know that they're doing it. They're in the process of a totalitarian takeover. We know that they want to replace us with cheap labor. I mean, clearly a genocide is unfolding. You got to keep this in context of all these other things that have happened. For instance, the years-long information war against white people to prepare us for genocide, right? As they've done across Europe for people there. And I mean, we clearly have been prepped for genocide. We've got all these movies coming out now that are targeted to Black people, how evil white people are. We've got the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, C.Q. Brown, who's openly BLM. He's incredibly racist. It's interesting because I know he's an F-16 pilot. I know somebody that was in a squadron back when he was a young officer and said that he was quite racist back then. He was a mediocre pilot, but he was, but he's obviously in that position for a reason, right? And we are targeted to be replaced. And I keep warning Black people. I warn them all the time. They want to use you to help replace us, and they are going to kill you for sure. They have no use for you. And I tell you what, if the Chinese if the Chinese are in sufficient power, they will kill every last Black person on earth, and they can do it. They can do it through biological means and many other methods, right? They can absolutely cleanse Africa and the United States, and you can't get away. They hate Black people. I spent a year in China. Oh, my alarm! I gotta go.
Yeah, you're good.
I can go 5 more minutes.
All right.
But I spent a year. I spent over 18 years in Asia. And I tell you what, I've never seen racism like China. Especially the Han Chinese in particular. They're racist against their own people in Hong Kong that speak Cantonese. I mean, if you don't speak Mandarin, you're a subspecies to them, right? It's quite interesting.
Baz, your take on it?
Yeah, I I wish I could say it was our government. I don't consider our government anymore.
I
You
don't
know where I
either.
stand with we the people. I think it's just tyrannical, to be honest with you. I think we have players up there that pretend to be representing the American people.
Yep.
I would agree with Michael. There's a lot of evidence I think has to come out, but for we who have experience, really lean hard towards the fact that this was orchestrated by government entities, by global powers, by people of influence in Washington D.C. That have spewed venom at Trump. And when they spew venom at Trump, they spew it at the American patriot. That shot towards Trump was a shot at millions of us. And I always like to tell the bad guys that, you know, just keep pushing it. Just keep pushing it. You know what? We're going to start doing the same thing you did to us. Like, oh, we're guilty before proven innocent. Well, guess what? In my book, you're guilty right now until proven innocent. And right now, I believe you're guilty of attempting to assassinate President Trump, to be honest with you. Secret Service, you got a lot to account for. The head of Secret Service, my gosh, how did she even get there? When you get to be experienced and as old as many of us are, uh, you know, we don't really care what position of power you're in. The position of power that we trust in is we the people. That's it. I don't care if you're a mayor. I don't care if you're a governor. I don't care who you are. You know what? You're not more powerful than the people. You are supposed to serve the people of the United States of America. And
That's
that
Benjamin
is,
Franklin talking right there, brother.
there you go. So that's the way we look at it. And I will tell you what, the mistake they are making, and they have always made, rests in their arrogance and
Yep.
their taste for power, and they underestimate the American patriot, and that's going to show its face because if and when that time comes, they are going to be the people in the crosshairs. There will be no place for them to hide. You cannot underestimate the resolve of the American patriot. When it comes to things like Michael's talking about, we've talked about this, Tommy. We've been in the trenches, and I tell my Black American friends, we, we always get in this discussion. It's like there are no African Americans in America. There are no Irish Americans in America. There's no Mexican Americans in America. You're just an American because when I drag you out of the trenches, we all bleed the same color, and so and I've got Black American friends that laugh and they go, I've never lived in Africa. I visited. I don't want to be there. I'm an American. That's all I want to be, and so much of what Michael's saying, I think my Black American friends uh, that have other Black American friends who don't have a stable mindset and they're buying into a lot of this baloney need to understand that what Michael's saying is exactly right. They will use you for their agenda, and then you will be killed off. That's the nature of that strategy. Um, so I think they need to be aware of that as well. I don't care if you're white, green, black, purple, whatever it is. If you're an American, you're an American. If you love the Constitution, then I love you. If you don't love the Constitution, guess what? I hate you to the bloody end because that means you're a threat for democracy. It means you're a threat against my family. It means you're a threat against everything that my founding fathers died for in this country. And I unashamedly tell you that right now on camera. You are my enemy. And I think more Americans need to start standing up and saying, guess what? You're not my friend. You are the enemy, and you will be treated as the enemy. If you're a threat against democracy, against the Constitution, excuse me, and we're not stupid. We're very, very well educated. When you hear the Democrats say things like Trump's a threat to democracy, that's could not be so further from the truth. You may not like the color of his hair, you may not like his delivery, but his policies were great. And his 4 years as a president helped this country. And I believe with all my heart, he loves the people and he's here to serve the people. I don't think that what we have in power right now is willing to do that. And they show it every single day. As far as for us, the question is, how far are we willing to go and how much more are we willing to tolerate? I think the time is over, to be honest with you. I think Americans have got to rise up. I think people that believe in the Constitution have got to stand their ground against all of the ancillary entities that come out of the Democratic Party, whether it's whether it's the transgender thing or the LGBTQXYZ or the American Communist Party or BLM or Antifa or whatever it may be. Take a stand. Take a stand and say enough's enough. You're not going to destroy my cities. We the people are the law of this nation.
Beautifully said, Baz. Michael, I know you got to run. If so we can wrap it up if you need.
Yeah, I got to roll
You're good.
right now.
You're
I
good.
wish I could go for another hour, but
You're
I
good,
really
man.
got to punch.
We'll do another one.
All
Don't
right,
worry
man.
about it. Mr. Yon, thank you so
I'll talk
much.
with you later, Bats. Talk with y'all later.
All right, thank you
All
so
right,
much.
Michael. Sleep well, man.
Bye.
Out of here.
Baz,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Baz, thank you for your time, man. And yeah, we will wrap this up. And I think we should definitely do another one because I got to get ready for another meeting in 3 minutes. So, Baz, I appreciate your time, brother. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're feeling better. Thanks, Michael. And God bless the country and the people of our country. Okay.
Amen.
Thanks, man.
God wins.
All right.
We're going to win. Thank you so much.
We will win.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Out
guys.
here.
Thank you for watching.
Recording in progress.
Much love. Peace. And if you're still watching, please keep watching. I got to do an ad read. Got to do an ad read. It's how the show makes money. Can y'all bear with me? Don't click out. Please don't click out. I got to do an ad read to keep the show funded. We're going to do 1775 coffee. Alrighty. Guys, it's time to say goodbye to Starbucks and say hello to Rumble 1775 Coffee. They're listening to the show. They're on that Ben Franklin energy. Unlike other brands, this is a coffee that backs free speech and is unapologetic about it. Visit 1775 Coffee, 1775coffee.com. Use the promo code STUDIO40, STUDIO, the number 40 to get 40% off any coffee subscription. That's probably the biggest percent off I've seen in any affiliate could I do. Just honestly. The coffee comes in medium and dark roast. It also comes in pea berry, which is similar to Kona coffee. In other words, this stuff is premium. Click in the live link, chat, or description. You can also go directly to 1775coffee.com and use the promo code STUDIO40 to get 40% off today. Guys, thank you so much for watching. God wins. Love each other. We're going to get through this. And, of course, obviously, legally, this show doesn't endorse violence or anything that could be misconstrued as violence. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Take care. Peace.